Hi there, I'm Lisa from Pickle Pie Designs. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to have a tutorial on stitching our brand new pillboxes. These fun designs are sized to fit standard pillboxes that you can grab on Amazon or at your local pharmacy. They come in 3 sizes for the double, the 2-a-day pillboxes, the 1-a-day pillboxes, and little mini pillboxes. The 3 hoop sizes fit in 5x7, 6x10, and 10.5 by 14 inch hoops. However, the large size that fits in the 10.5 by 14 inch hoops are also broken down into 2 hoopings in case you don't have that big a hoop. As long as you have an 8x12 or larger hoop, you can make the large case. Each box comes with 2 different quilt stitch styles, the bows and swirls. Today I'm going to show you how to stitch and assemble the large case that's made in 2 hoopings, but the stitching instructions are going to apply to all of the cases, whether they're the single hoop styles or the double hoop styles. You can find this design and more on our website. Just search pillboxes and more, or you can follow the link in the description of this video. We're also going to put links to the pillboxes that I mentioned that you can grab on Amazon and magnets that you can use in your case to make them have a magnetic closure, which is really neat and handy. So we'll link the magnets that we purchased and used in our boxes as well. All right, let's go to our embroidery machine and get started. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the first hooping, and this is the box top. Now, these designs come in 2 configurations. We have 3 sizes that complete a whole box in 1 hooping, and we have the large size broken out into 2 hoopings. So if you need a large box, you can do it in 2 hoopings as long as you have a 8x10 or larger hoop. So we're going to stitch the 2-part box here, but the same basic instructions apply to the boxes that are completed in 1 hooping. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and the first stitch sequence will stitch down placement lines. Okay, now that we have the placement lines down on the stabilizer, we're going to place the stiff stabilizer pieces that you cut from the pattern. There's a PDF included with the designs, and you will cut them out and use those to trace and cut your stiff stabilizer pieces. Now, I'm using regular tearaway stabilizer, not sticky stabilizer here, because I wanted to show you a trick if you don't have sticky stabilizer on hand. So let's see. My little piece there, and you can use Scotch tape or any type of embroidery tape, and we're just going to use those to help us hold down the pattern pieces as we go. Now, if your pattern pieces don't fit inside of those placement lines, if they're just slightly over, you're probably okay, but if they're much larger than your placement lines, we do recommend that you trim those down so that the project comes together. Okay, we're going to place our last little box there, and I'm just going to use some tape to hold these down. Again, if you were using sticky stabilizer, you can skip this step, but if you only have the tearaway on hands, is a fun little trick. So what we're going to do is just tape those to the stabilizer, kind of loosely, because you're going to need to remove that tape, and you don't want to tear your stabilizer when you remove the tape. So that's just kind of loose. And the next stitch sequence that goes down just tacks down the stabilizer, and it will not hit any of those pieces of tape because I kept them on the edges. And you'll notice I did hold down a couple of the pieces of stabilizer as the presser foot was coming down, just to make sure it wasn't going to hit it and catch on it. Next, you'll stitch the placement lines for the magnets. These are circular placement lines. If you're doing the boxes that come in one hooping, are completed in one hooping, you will stitch 2 magnet placement lines. Since we're doing the 2-part box, we're doing the top right now, it's only going to stitch 1 placement line, but on the second hooping it will stitch that second one. And after the project is done, you'll see how we use that placement line. Now I'm going to remove all of the tape. You don't want that to live in your project. And if you've taped it down lightly, you should have no problem doing this, and you won't tear your tearaway. Okay, let's remove the hoop from your machine. You can pull it back. You can work on a flat surface, or you can just leave it on the machine. And we're going to center the first piece of fabric. We're going to center it completely covering and extending past the edges of all of the stabilizer pieces and all of the stitch lines. Okay, and we do recommend taping that in place if you're not using sticky stabilizer. If you're using sticky stabilizer, remember the sticky side will be facing up, so your fabric will just grip onto it. It's nice and convenient to use it, but if you don't have it on hand, you can tape your fabric in place. Okay, so we're going to put the hoop back on the machine, and we're going to stitch the next stitch sequence, which will tack down the fabric, and it will also create the quilting stitches. And there are 2 separate quilting stitch options with this design. We're going to go for the little bow design. Now we're going to place fabric B right side down, and we're again going to center it over the project. And we can go ahead and tape that in place. If you're using sticky stabilizer, since you have the fabric below it, you still may need to tape this in place because the fabric A is using up all that sticky stabilizer. Okay, we'll sew the next stitch sequence, and this will complete the tack down for this first hooping. Okay, we're gonna put this aside for now, and we'll go ahead and do part 2, which is the bottom of the box, and then we'll come back and show you how to assemble the boxes. Okay, so I've removed all of these excess stabilizer that's outside of the project lines. I do want to go ahead and remove the stabilizer that is within that little rounded tab section, because this is going to turn right side out and it's going to be hard, really crunchy and difficult to get out. So I'm going to take the stabilizer from around that little circle piece. I will leave the stabilizer in that circle. That will actually help me when I'm installing my snaps or rivets. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And you will repeat this process on the part 2 section of the project that you'll stitch next. Okay, and then we're going to trim to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And around the tabs, I like to cut notches so that they turn really nicely. And a little tip is to use pinking shears, and that will give you a nice finish, turned finish around the snaps. And you can use this around the pinking shears around the rest of the project as well. See, I don't have to cut notches into these curves because of the pinking shears. And I like to snip right into the corner where you have that inside corner. Snip right up to the inner corner without snipping through the stitches. Here's another curved side of the project that you might want to cut notches into. The pinking shears will do the job for us. And again, I'm getting to a tab there. I want to cut right up to the corner rather. And then we'll go ahead and finish that little bit. Now we're going to attach the magnet. There's a circular placement line. If you look really closely, you can see that circle there. And we're going to basically tape a magnet in there using permanent seam tape. Now I listed in the instructions, and I'll list in the description of this video, the exact magnets that I bought on Amazon for this project. There are different grades of magnets, and the grade that we recommend, that we purchased and that works with this project, is an N48 neodymium magnet. Very strong, not too strong that you can't get them apart, but very strong. And what you're going to do is take 2 of the magnets, and you're going to just put them together where they naturally attract. So you've got 2 stacked on top of one another. And the reason we want you to do that is because there's a positive and a negative side to each magnet. and you want to make sure that they're placed correctly in your box so that your box will actually close and stay closed with that magnet. So I've used Pellon Permastick tape. I've cut off a little square, and I'm going to just cut a rough round shape out of it. And I think this tape is 5/8 inch wide tape. And we like the Pellon Permastick tape because once you heat it with an iron, it's permanent, and you don't want your magnet going anywhere. So do try to get your hands on this Pellon Permastick tape. We will link it below. So with that first circle of tape that I cut out, you're simply going to put it on the outside of the top magnet. So it does not have to be a neat circle. I cut it in 2 seconds. Don't take too much time on that. And you're going to leave that paper backing on for now. I'm going to just cut one more little circle out of the tape for the other piece, for the other magnet. Really doesn't have to be neat. This is going to be hiding on the inside of your project. Don't cut it too small because you want it to hold on to attach. All right, so for the second piece, you are not going to flip it and put the magnet on, or the tape on the opposite side. Do not just flip it and put that, because these two sides are going to be facing each other in the final project and they will not attract each other. So what you're going to do instead is you're going to slide the top magnet off, and then we're going to put that aside. And do not flip this magnet. Keep it exactly as you had it. And you're going to put the tape on that top side, okay? So these two magnets, when they attract, they're going to be both with the right side facing up, with the seam tape facing up. Now I'm going to show you how to, or where to, and how to attach the magnet to your bag. I'm going to just use a fingernail really quickly there and pull up the backing. And you might have to work at it a little bit, but it's not too bad. You're going to now, to get more light here, there's the sticky side. You're going to find the magnet placement line. It's a circle, and you're going to simply adhere. This does not have to be exactly perfect. You just want to make sure it's inside the seam line there. And we can go over to our iron, press it on this side, and that will adhere your iron really well to the stabilizer. If you're making a single hooping box, you will have the other magnet placement line on the opposite side of the project. With us, we're going to repeat this process, but on the bottom section of the box. Okay, I have the bottom half of the two-hooping project done, and you'll see right there, this is going to attach basically like so, and there's the bottom placement line, that circle right there. And we are going to take the other magnet and pull the tape off of that one. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to find that circular placement line. We're going to press it in place with our finger, and then we'll take it to the iron and press it like so. And then we're going to turn both sides of these projects right side out, and I'll show you how to assemble. One of the little bit tricky parts about this is getting the tabs pushed out. They can be quite tricky. You can put a pinky in there or a chopstick, and what I like to do is put it in there and then use my thumb to push it out. So now I've started the pushing. You can put your turning tool or a closed pen or whatever you have on hand, a chopstick even, and push that out. And you want to push it out so that all the seams are nicely pushed out. I like to do the tabs first, just to make sure they're turned properly so that when I turn the rest of the project, I don't have to reach in and struggle with those. So you can use your turning tool or your chopstick or whatever and press those seams out really well. I'm going to go ahead and press the rest of the project through that opening. If you're doing a one hooping box, you only need to do one hooping to complete the box. You will have an opening and you'll close it up with some seam tape, or you can close it and then do a top stitch on that edge to close it, but there will be a magnet here, so you need to be careful when you're doing that. Okay, let's go ahead and assemble the box. Now, if you have stitched a box that is a one hooping box, you won't have two parts. But if you're stitching the large because you didn't have a big enough hoop to do the single hooping, you're going to end up with the two pieces that we stitched. I have turned these right side out and poked out the tabs really well and the seams, gave both pieces a good press, and there's an opening on the bottom. So the bottom is the smaller piece. That opening is going to accommodate the excess fabric that is stitched on the top piece. So all you're going to do is slide the top piece into the opening on the bottom piece. You do not want to slide it all the way to the tabs, because this piece here has a piece of stiff stabilizer, and let me show you that on a finished box. This is that piece on the finished box. So this box was stitched in one hooping. It's the same size, but just to demonstrate, that piece is this piece here. You do not want that to slide onto the bottom of your box. And we have the quilting on the design that goes up only on the stiff stabilizer. So you're going to insert it only until the point where the quilting starts on the top piece. You can pin that in place, and there are a couple of ways that you can attach this. You can pin it and then take it to your sewing machine, and I would do a double row of top stitches along the bottom section. You can also use our the permastick tape that we love, and if you're using this, you don't need to sew. You would just put a piece of tape that length inside the opening here on both that section, both that side rather, the top, and then inside the lining as well. And then once you press that, that becomes permanent. Got a little crooked, turn it over here. But that becomes permanent in there, and it should hold just fine. You can also do a line of straight stitching as well as the permastick tape, and you can also install rivets. For some extra security, you can install a rivet here and here. So let me turn that back the way we had it. So this is the bottom of the box, this is the top of the box. So you can install a rivet here and a rivet here for some extra security. Once that's done, we can install rivets on the tabs and assemble the box. You can also use snaps if you'd like. Okay, so I've placed a piece of seam tape on the lid, and I placed it on the section of fabric that does not have quilting, because that is going to slide up into the bottom piece. So I've placed the seam tape, and permastick seam tape is what we prefer and what we recommend. It's a permanent tape. Once you heat it up with your iron, it becomes permanent. So it's a lot stronger than other seam tapes rather. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So I'm just going to fold it up so I know where to place my tape. And I'm going to place it like so. Now it's very important to insert this into the bottom section before you before you take the wax paper backing off of the tape, because this permastick tape is no joke. It is sticky, and once it comes off, once the backing comes off, it will stick to anything it touches. So you want to make sure it is placed in there very well. And yeah, it's a little tricky to get started. You just got to work at it a little bit with a fingernail. Let's try this end. All right, I came out a little bit here, so I'm going to scooch this back in, and I'm actually going to pin that in place temporarily so it doesn't move when I take the backing off,
and I'm just lifting in there and removing the backing. Now I'm going to do this little section at a time because if I do it, the whole thing, it's going to stick wherever it wants to stick before I have time to adjust and scooch. All right, that is placed. I'm going to then take my iron, and we need to give that a good press to make, that stabilizer, or I'm sorry, the seam tape permanent. So we give that a nice good press. And you can follow the instructions on the package. It's Pellon Permastick tape. I'm going to do the same thing on the back side here. And I probably should have, yeah. All right. That does not want to scooch in there, but I'm just going to have to work it. Okay. All right, and we're going to again press the lining side, following the manufacturer's instructions for how long. Now, if you want to give your lining a little bit of extra stability, you can take this over to the sewing machine. This is optional, but you can stitch down this seam. This one doesn't need it if you've used the tape, or maybe you stitched it already, but you can also do a line here. That will help your lining just stay in place and not be floppy. Okay, let's go ahead and install the rivets. I have a cam snap tool. And this particular one allows me to get dies for rivets, and you just screw them on, screw them off. I use a 6mm rivets, and before we do the rivets, you actually have to punch the holes. Now you can buy a die set to punch holes, and I actually own that set, but I don't like it as much as I like this tool. This is the OESD Perfect Hole Punch, and it has 3 sizes of hole punches, and it is super duper easy. Now I'm gonna just help it out a little bit. I've got a little I've got the OESD little cutting mat for the hole punch. I'm going to put some tearaway stabilizer there just to give this a little bit of extra stability. And all you do is you find the placement line that was stitched in the hoop, and it is right there. You probably can't see it on camera. You just center this hole punch tool over it and give it a good, give it a good press, and it punches a hole perfectly for you. And I probably didn't have this tightened down enough. But basically, to change the little cutting tool sizes on here, they live in the handle, and this just screws on. And normally it doesn't come off. All right, so I've got a beautiful hole right there. I'm going to do the same on the other 4 tabs, finding that placement line. And with this tool, you do want to go quick. You don't want to punch it slow. It needs a good, quick, precision punch. And it's very easy to do, even if you have painful hands or any arthritic conditions. This is super, super easy. All right, so I have 4 holes there. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to assemble the box. So on these little side pieces, you're going to pull one up, and then you're going to lift that top section and clip it in place. We're going to be using that again. We're going to just clip it in place for now, and we're going to assemble the other tabs. Clip them in place. Again, lift the the top up so that the tab is in position, holding that structure, making that box structure. Okay, we have our box structure. If you are fitting a pillbox in here, right now is where I want you to get your pillbox, put it inside. We want to check and make sure that the sides are pulled tightly, or we may need to loosen them a little bit to make sure your pillbox fits. So just going to slide that in there, and that fits pretty well. It could be a little more snug, so you can go ahead and, while the pillbox is in there, repin or reclip if you want to make it a little more snug, or if you need to loosen it, you can do that right now. And you want to do this before we install the rivets. It's okay to have a little bit of room because you are going to have to take the pillbox out to refill it every week. So a little bit of room is fine. All right, so now we need to punch holes in these sides because remember we did the tabs, but we didn't do the sides. And what I'm going to do here, okay, so to find the hole, you can do a couple of things. You can go through the hole that you placed in the tab, and with a pen, marking pen, mark it. I am going to simply punch it with an awl. This comes with some of the snap tools when you buy them, or you can just mark it with a pen. And then you're going to mark those and use the perfect hole punch again to punch the holes in the sides. So I'm going to do both sides on this end of the case. Punch a hole through there. And then I'm going to go back to my little mat. This does not need stabilizer because there's stiff stabilizer in here, so it's going to be nice and crisp for that hole punch tool to go through. Let's see where my hole is there. A little hard to find. I can see the hole better on the white lining side, so I'm going to just punch that hole. So we have a nice hole there, a hole there. We're going to do the other side. Easy peasy. All right, and what I like to do before I do the rivets is I like to make sure I'm through both holes. I put my awl in there just to hold it in place and put another clip. You're going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm going to show you, once we have all the holes punched, I'm going to show you how to install the rivets. Okay, we have all of our holes punched and ready to go. To install the rivets, I'm going to take the clip off of just one of the tabs. Again, I'm going to put my awl in there to hold it. I'm using 8mm rivets, and on campsnaps.com you can buy different size dies for your press, and you have to buy them at the same size that you're buying the rivets. I like the 8mm ones. You can go bigger or smaller. You can also buy at your local quilt shop, and I'll put a link below. Sally Tomato has a manual rivet setting tool. It requires a hammer, but it's effective if you don't want to invest in a Camp Snap press. You can also install snaps here. So you would install just the cap, which is the rounded part of the snap, and I would do the female part, which is the innie side of the snap. You don't have to install both sets because you can just put it through like it's a rivet and not have it open and close if you're just using the one section. All right, so I have put the rivet with the long piece on the outside, and then there's the coordinating piece that goes on the inside, and that doesn't have a stem like the first one did. Once you put it in, you can snap it together, and it holds pretty well temporarily until you do your press. So the one thing that I've learned about installing rivets is these dies have a little concave, they have concave surfaces, so the rounded part of your rivet will sit in there and not get damaged. So you have to make sure that your die is centered perfectly on each of the snap dies there. Super simple. Once you have it centered there, you'll just push down on your cam tool, easy peasy, and your rivet is installed, both the inside and the outside. This is not going anywhere. It's very sturdy and actually quite fun to do. So you're going to install all the other ones. I'll go ahead and do that and show you what it looks like when we're done. Okay, we're installed. So your project is done. This is going to close and have that magnetic lid that will stay closed. And what you can do if you use tape, or even if you sewed this back section on, this lid is going to get a lot of use. And even though the opening is at the bottom, you might want to secure it a little better. And if you wanted to do that, I would do this before installing the side snaps, but you can install a rivet on the end here and on the other end here just for some extra security. Here's another box. You can see the bows a little better on that one. So cute. You can use a fun lining. These are great for gifts. And here's another one of the versions with the swirls on it. Isn't that little one cute? This one fits the little mini one-time pill boxes. And actually, these come in a pack of 2, so you could probably get 2 in there. Let's see. Yeah, fit 2. So if you're just going for a day, you need to bring your pills with you, that's a perfect solution.